United States-Japan, the U.S.-Japan tariff talks and the minimum access rice quandary, a deep dive. 1. Background. Trump's tariff campaign. In April 2025, President Trump ignited a series of tariff proclamations targeting major trade partners, U.S., EU, China, Japan, by announcing reciprocal tariffs up to 25%, in some cases reduced to 30%, on imports into the United States. This marked a resurgence of his aggressive, America First, trade posture. The U.S. demanded greater access for its exports, particularly autos and agricultural goods like rice, in exchange for tariff concessions on high-value imports from partners such as Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. 2. Why rice is front and center. Little staple-dense politics like rice in Japan. Historically, under the World Trade Organization's Uruguay Round 1994-1999, Japan agreed to a minimum access, tariff rate quota (TRQ) system. Up to 770,000 mt of rice could enter annually duty-free, with anything above subject to punishing tariffs till the 341 yen per kilogram, equivalent to 227–778%. Yet domestic shortages in the 2024-25 fiscal year triggered Japan to import nearly its TRQ, sourcing mostly from the US and South Korea. For Washington, Japan's protection of rice is a glaring example of protectionism, tariffs above 200% according to US officials, hard to justify in an era of evolving global trade norms. 3. The negotiations, stakes and tensions. Cooked rice versus autos. Japan faced pressure on two fronts. 1. U.S. demanded expanded rice access under TRQ. Farming lobbyists in Japan resisted, wary of eroding domestic self-sufficiency and cultural values. 2. In return, Japan sought tariff relief on auto exports, a cornerstone of its economy. Trump offered steep tariffs 25%, later lowered to 15%, surprising Tokyo and softening some political resistance. Talks hit a standstill due to electoral dynamics. Japan's LDP, due in a summer upper house election, hesitated to concede something as politically sensitive as rice. Domestic pressures. U.S. rice industry champions like USA Rice pushed hard. Notably, USA Rice's president hailed the agreement as the first opportunity since the 1990s to further that market access. Diplomatic brinkmanship. Trump's threat to raise tariffs by August 1 unless a deal was struck, amplified urgency. 4. The breakthrough. July 22–23, 2025. Key outcomes. Autos. Reciprocal U.S. tariffs on Japanese autos and parts slashed to 15%, from 25–27.5%. Rice. Japan agreed to boost U.S. rice imports within the existing 770,000 mount TRQ, a significant concession even if it stopped short of expanding quotas. Tariff structure. Tariffs outside TRQ holdings, autos, etc. would be capped at 15%, replacing the threatened 25%. Investment package. Japan pledged up to $550 billion investment into the U.S., via loans guarantees for sectors including semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and autos. Steel and aluminium. These remained untouched. Tariffs stayed at 50%, signaling selective compromise. Market reaction. Tokyo markets leapt on this news. The Nikkei rose approximately 3–4%, largely driven by auto shares, Toyota plus 14%, Honda plus 11%. 5. The minimum access rice deal, deep effects. For Japan, domestic supply relief. Extra TRQ imports help mitigate high rice prices and consumer shortages. In the previous year, Japan exhausted its TRQ for the first time in a decade. Food security and pride. Critics argue, import dependence may undermine cultural identity and security amid an aging farming sector. Political balancing act. Prime Minister Ishiba insists no sacrifice was made to agriculture, leveraging quota expansion without tariff revisions. But rural discontent is evident in areas like San-in. Farmers protested July 13 in Totora, calling for compensation. 4. U.S. rice farmers. Expanded access means revenue uplift. U.S. exports to Japan averaged $223 million. However, in the past year, Japan imported approximately 100 kmt duty-free, 60% of which was U.S. rice. Support from USA Rice. Their CEO congratulated the deal, calling it a major milestone since the 1990s and urging further implementation talks. Agricultural and political risks. Domestic resistance. Japanese farmers argue the deal risks eroding local production and called for income support and modernization measures. Long-term waiting. Critics warn that heavy reliance on imports could hollow out Japan's rice sector amid fluctuating global markets. The deal must transcend short-term relief. 6. Political aftershocks. In Japan, elections ahead. The LDP loses its upper house majority, increasing vulnerability. Ishiba's claim that agriculture saw no sacrifice will be scrutinized. Farmer backlash. Rural protests reflect growing unease. Reddit discussions from Yazoo Town to Tora voiced. Greater than, I feel very angry, agriculture is being sacrificed again, asterisk. In the U.S., farmer gains. U.S. rice growers and their associations applaud the deal as long underappreciated market access. Economic uncertainty. Critics caution that Trump's framework-like deals lack formal text and enforceability. Nothing is final. International precedent. The deal's flat 15% tariff model deviates from sectoral or country-specific rates, a potential template for future trade pacts. 7. Broader implications. Trade diplomacy. The U.S. demonstrated that tariffs can yield swift concessions, but its approach raises concerns about consistency and transparency. Japan's unique outcome, gaining auto relief without widening rice quotas, suggests the power of domestic politics in global trade deals. Agricultural policy. Japan's agriculture faces an existential challenge: maintain rural vitality amid urbanization, aging farmers, and trade pressure. Continued modernization and support may be critical. U.S. rice exports. The deal boosts competitiveness. Rice exporters anticipate expanded quota and resolve to leverage long-term gains. Future trade landscape. Steel and aluminium tariffs remain. These may become flashpoints in future negotiations. Deal template. Other nations, UK, Vietnam, Indonesia may mimic Japan's 15% flat tariff model under similar quid pro quo, U.S. market access plus mega investments. 8. The farmer impact. Case studies. Sanin region, Totora prefecture. Farmers expressed anger after quotas expanded. One protester, Kazuya Kamatani, led a rally on July 13, calling for income support and lamenting rural neglect. Politicians from rice-producing districts are under pressure to enact compensation schemes or modernization grants. American rice producers. Revenue boost. Duty-free entry of approximately 50 to 60K Mount U.S. rice means $116 to $139 million in new revenue based on historical $222 million per 327 kmt. Future growth potential. Industry groups plan to maximize opportunities via engagement with Japanese importers. 9. Challenges ahead for Japan's farmers. 1. Domestic competition. Expand crop yields. Efficiency grants. 2. Political representation. Rural voices must shape reforms to avoid losing out. 3. Cultural resilience. Balancing global trade with Japanese rice's symbolic value. For U.S. exporters. 1. Implementation clarity. How will quotas evolve after next review? 2. Market sensitivity. Can U.S. rice remain price competitive under variable exchange rates? 3. Diversification. Will U.S. exporters tap other Asian markets to offset risk? 10. Final thoughts. The U.S.-Japan Trade Pact marks a milestone in modern trade politics. Japan gains by sidestepping harsher tariffs on autos and preserving key quotas. The United States secures increased rice access and a compelling investment package. Farmers in both nations feel tension. U.S. producers celebrating fresh market entry, Japanese farmers bracing for competitive pressure. This deal illustrates the complex calculus of modern trade diplomacy, a blend of tariffs, quotas, domestic politics, economic interests, and cultural values. As global supply chains evolve, so too must trade instruments, but they must also protect vulnerable stakeholders along the way. The key test: will Japan support its rice farmers in adapting to new realities? Will U.S. exporters sustain market gains, or will they be thwarted by non-tariff barriers? The answers will shape agricultural communities on both sides of the Pacific, and the future tenor of U.S.-Japan relations.